thank you everyone who's joining us here for Thwack Camp 2020. It's great to have you in. Welcome those of you who watched our service desk session on the main stage on automation. And this is ITSM 101 with SolarWinds Service Desk. My name's Chris McManus. You also see my colleague Sean Sebring there. He is a member of our solutions engineering team, and he is ITIL certified with his managing professional certification. So for you ITIL heads, Sean is very well schooled here. Hello, Sean.
How's it going, Chris? And thank you for the intro. Yes, I am an ITIL managing professional, and I've got my certifications shining behind me, a little bit shinier than what we've got going on up top here. But during COVID, I've had a little more growth down here than up here, like some of our other colleagues. But we're looking forward to a fun session today. I'm super excited to walk through some of the service desk with you while we talk about some ITSM 101. And we'll be able to see some contrast between the web help desk, which I definitely saw some of the questions about what's the difference between web help desk and the service desk. This is going to be an excellent opportunity for you guys to check out those differences.
Yeah, so I think just before we get started, a few of the things that we want to make sure we touch on throughout the next 30 minutes, and we are happy to take questions throughout. If you've got ITIL questions, Sean can answer those. How to implement some of those best practices in Service Desk, we can get to all of that. We're going to cover incident management. We're going to cover problem management. We're going to cover change management. And we're going to show you how to get all that started with a service portal experience for your users and maybe how you'd like to design that. But before we do get to that, I think it's worth discussing, Sean, why the basics are important right now. Obviously, different circumstances for a lot of the folks who are joining us here today at Thwack Camp, and remote work is involved for a lot of the employees. So why do you think it's so important now that we step back and look at the 101 type things and make sure we're doing those well?
Yeah, the new hot topic besides global warming is definitely the pandemic, right? And that pandemic has had a massive impact on pretty much every organization I can think of. And IT is definitely going to be victim to that as well, right? So one of the biggest things that you can identify is that with everyone being remote, the way that tickets are sent in, the way that folks are asking for assistance, whether it's for a new service, right, an existing type of service, or if it's reporting a problem with a service disruption, right, the way that those are being reported is going to be hugely different. And so one of the things that I think we're going to start when we show, the portal is how can that be improved, right? While we're all working remotely, what tools are out there to make that ticket submission, the self-service, getting your work done without having to be inconvenienced by working with IT support? What's out there for me as an end user? And that's what we're going to be starting with, right?
Yep. And so before we get to some of those ITIL practices, incident, problem, change management, and how we can use Service Desk to bring some of that to life, I think you're right, Sean. The portal is a good place to start, and it's a natural place to start for a lot of folks, and at any time they're starting with a new solution in ITSM. But I think now a lot of your end users are going to have no choice but to interact with the resources that you provide here. So here's our Service Desk portal. And Sean, I'll have you kind of walk through what we're looking at, what we want that experience to be like for the user. If I'm an IT help desk manager setting this up, what are the key things that I want to make sure I have in my portal?
Right. And so one of the first things I want to say is it needs to be easy, it needs to be obvious, and it needs to be convenient, right? We're not asking folks to go to a self-service portal to inconvenience them. It's going to benefit both the end user and the technician. Adoption can be tough, though. So it's some things that are going to help is just, again, to make it simple, to make it pretty, to make it easy. It can be branding, right? Picking your colors, picking your logos, picking your favicons. But some of the things I want to highlight, again, is the easy submission, a new ticket always being able to be submitted from wherever you're at on the portal, options to reach out to your technical support and say things like, I need help, right? And just start a chat with your technical support team. After sending in a chat, right, you can go back and forth, but there might be some self-service that you can do while you're waiting for that chat to be responded to. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that we've got. Just from right here on the home page of the self-service portal, we've got some hot links to knowledge base, opening a new ticket, checking out, submitting a service request. But let's look at these popular services, popular solutions, right? So I show up to the portal not really knowing what to do, where to go. Just having it right here on that first page, some nice, very obvious pictures of things that may be relevant to me, and especially if they're popular, there's a good chance it could be what I'm looking for. But then also an announcement message up here that's going to get my attention and say, this is something that maybe everybody's going on, right? A Wi-Fi issue. For the sake of looking at the self-service portal, I'm going to ignore that I've caught on to that announcement message. I'm going to type in here real quickly, can't connect to Wi-Fi.
You
and
are
this
the classic
to me,
ignoring the message. Yes.
ignoring some self-service, right? And that's why I think that this little icon right here is going to be a huge thing. And to me, this is the biggest part of self-service, right? As an end user, if all of the obvious things you threw at me on my homepage, if they're not getting my attention, as I type, this is what folks are used to. If they're shopping on Amazon, if they're Googling, right, they have that search bar. They can put in what they're concerned about, what they want, or what they're having an issue with, and have information fed to them, right? So this to me is going to be the most important thing. What can the system do for me, right? And that's from the end user's perspective. What can the system do for me?
Excellent. And I think for those of you that are using the Service Desk platform right now, you have probably seen that those suggestions over time improve as end users are selecting the correct forms for service requests, or as your techs are attaching knowledge articles to resolve tickets, or even as the end users are discovering those knowledge articles and clicking on them more. The applicable ones are going to pop up first, which, of course, is the nature of the artificial intelligence there. I think that's going to lead us nicely into our next section there. Since you were ready to submit an incident, Sean, let's get into the back end and take a look at incident management. So I'll throw the ITIL definition to you, and you can tell us what stands out and what folks should focus on when they think about their incident management practice. So ITIL 4 defines incident management as the practice of minimizing negative impact of incidents by restoring normal service operation as quickly as possible. So practically speaking there, Mr. ITIL, what are we focusing on here?
So with ITIL 4, there's definitely something I want to focus on with this definition, but let me highlight a couple keywords, right? Restoring service and then as quickly as possible, right? That seems fairly evident. Restoring service as quickly as possible. But the first part says reducing the impact of incidents. And something as technicians, I think we really need to hold on to is remembering that incidents aren't just tickets, right? They're not just records. They're not just things that we need to close out. That incident came in because somebody had an outage. Somebody has a job to do. Maybe they can't do it without that being solved. Sometimes it's a request. They need something new. How about your headset going out and you need to request getting a new headset? That's a perfect example of service requests coming in, and your service, your ability to provide service as an end user has been disrupted, right? So we can look at all of those as someone needs something. And so I want to recognize that incident management isn't just about closing tickets. And sometimes I feel like that definitely gets lost. It's about restoring service to someone as quickly as possible. So I think that's again, now that I've rambled and shared my soapboxy opinion about things, I'm going to jump over to a share. We can kind of dive into a little bit more from a technician's point of view, what that incident management could look like.
Yeah, and I like this part because I think for a lot of the folks that work on the help desk that are joining us here today, this is going to be where you spend the majority of your time, right, in the incident queue. So Sean's going to take us through some of the ideas here that can help you work more efficiently in here, and some of the capabilities that you can leverage in order to resolve the tickets faster, but also to provide that service and value to your customers.
Right. So hopefully we're looking at the right screen. I've got my help desk queue popped up here. And there's a lot of things that we could really spend time on covering here, but we're focused on today, as quickly as possible, right? Restoring service as quickly as possible. So one of the first things I want to comment on is based on the categorization, right? We want to make sure that it gets sent to the right folks right off the bat. So if someone goes to that portal or they're accessing submitting a ticket through their phone, or it's from an email, we want to make sure that the categorization is automated, the assignment is automated, right? So we can get it to the right folks to do that restoration or provide the service as quickly as possible. And me as a technician, when I come in and look at the tickets, I can see all tickets maybe, right? I can see the thousands, but I need to be able to see the tickets that are relevant to me, right? The stuff that's important, the high priorities, the stuff that's assigned directly to me, not just all tickets. So getting the right views set up, right? Looking at the right queues, looking at the right information. And again, now that I've got this ticket in front of me, right? This could be our example of Robbie Requester putting in that ticket from the self-service portal. I need to be able to do some actions without having to just open the ticket and kind of read through it. From here, if I had many tickets, there's a lot of capabilities we can highlight, right? Getting a snapshot into the ticket, popping it over and getting some more details. Here's a little teaser of smart suggestions we're going to look at when we open up this ticket here. But being able to make things like a assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and claim this on myself. My marketing persona, Tom, he's actually a really great guy. But being able to change things like the assigned to and note that the state changed with that, change my priority, change my category. And then when I jump into my ticket, actually being able to make those same quick changes no matter where I'm at on the ticket, right? That's a sticky bar up top. So being able to make these changes as a technician, this is going to be huge for me. I don't have to, click around, jump around. I can open as many tabs as I need to. I can make all these changes from that ticket view. And real briefly, before I turn it back over to Chris, I wanted to mention again, right? These smart suggestions. What can the system do for me? This was something I mentioned from the self-service side, but AI and machine learning is definitely something that's becoming more important. It's becoming more relevant, and it's becoming more essential to the technicians as well, right? We're not just trying to build AI for self-service. I want the AI to be able to help my technicians perform their practices like incident management as efficiently as possible.
So, Sean, you're making my job very easy now to go to our next topic, which is going to be problem management. You've got some related tickets there, it looked like, within the suggestions, right? Because sometimes it's not a one-off incident. Sometimes you get a ticket in and it's indicative of something larger. You've got multiple end users that are experiencing this same thing. And the faster we can diagnose that, the faster we're going to be able to resolve those issues for all of those end users and keep them productive in what they do. So let's get the definition of problem management here, and then you could show us how to apply it within Service Desk. So according to ITIL 4, problem management is the practice of reducing the likelihood and impact of incidents by identifying actual and potential causes of incidents and managing workarounds and known errors. So there's a mouthful there, Sean. So tell us what we need to take from that.
Yeah, so that one's a big one. That one's there's a lot to digest in it. A couple things I want to point out for it is incidents was in the definition of problems, and to quickly help, what is a problem outside of just the definition practically. A problem can be anything that's one or more incidents, right? And I'm gonna give myself goosebumps here because I'm a big nerd when it comes to ITIL and I love analogies. So one of the things I like to say most is when we think about incidents and problems, I hear so many people in IT operations say, I can't. I have a fire I'm dealing with right now, right? A fire. There's always fires and there always will be fires. And to me, if we're looking at incidents and problems, the fire is the incident, right? That's something you need to extinguish. We need to close it. We need to resolve it, right? We need to get that fire put out. And if an incident is a fire, then I like to think of problems as the spark, right? The igniter. Right? If you don't address the spark that's continuing to start fires, you're going to keep having fires. You're going to be continually putting it out. And sometimes they could be really simple things to stop that spark. And that means that's going to stop those tickets from coming in, right? So you have to think about it from a value perspective. Sure, the incidents might be easy to close, but if you don't stop that spark in the first place, you're going to keep closing them for no reason. You're going to keep addressing tickets without needing to, right? If you take care of the problem, which I'm going to expand on the definition in a second, you're really stopping those fires from happening. So from the definition that you gave, Chris, that's from ITIL 4, some of the keywords that I want to highlight outside of just it's part of incidents is impact, root cause, and workarounds, right? So those things need to be identified because they are broader issues than just one person experiencing something. So we need to identify that root cause is probably the most important. And whether you're documenting it as part of problem management or not, that's definitely going to be the most important thing. You need to find out how it's happening. So if you're identifying root causes, whether you know it or not, you're practicing problem management. Just formalizing it, putting it into records is really what we're going to try to focus on in the service desk. But then the impact and the workaround, right? The impact is important to justify towards the business, right? This is the impact this had on us. It's why we need to take preventative measures. It's why we need budget increases, right? Sometimes they're used for justifying budgets because impact can be a loss of business. I think I had a statistic just the other day. It's $5,600 per minute for outages, right? And that might be just network related, right? But a network down, that's an incident that's probably growing into a problem. So justifying costs and things, and then workarounds. That's an easy one. Workarounds are constantly used. Sometimes problems can't be completely extinguished. So we have workarounds to help. Let's go back to the incidents definition, to restore service as quickly as possible. And sometimes a workaround is part of that. Doesn't mean we don't need to put that spark out, but it means we need to restore that service as quickly as possible. I'm going to catch my breath. Chris, help me fill in.
Yeah, and I think one thing I did want to acknowledge is you get ready to jump in and show us problem management, and I get ready to wave my hands and turn my office light back on since it is motion detected. We do have some great stuff going on in the chat right now, and we're going to have some time at the end for Q&A. I saw one question about queue versus group assignment and when tickets could be assigned to a group. So we're going to get to a bunch of questions at the end. There's my light. So we will get some questions at the end of the presentation as well. And as Sean pulls up our problem management here, we're going to take a look at how to connect multiple incidents to a problem and try to work that all at once.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. So the smart suggestions, right? What can the system do for me? This definitely is a huge part of problem management, right? Smart suggestions, it's a system. Not every suggestion is going to be correct, but being able to see what the system thinks might be relevant, right? What might be a similar incident. This is kind of catching the trend, right? One or more incident, problem management, one of the things is it's a little bit of a retroactive practice, right? A problem has to exist before you can try and address it. So trying to get to that problem as proactively as possible, leaning on automations, machine learning, smart suggestions, this is going to be huge. So from a technician's perspective, this makes it easy because the system is suggesting these, right? I click a paperclip right here, and this is going to make the relationship between these tickets together, right? So when I'm trying to identify that impact later on, I'll have captured, to the best of my ability, what is the impact, right? How many tickets are coming in about this problem? And we are looking at an incident record. We're getting ready to jump over to a problem record, but workarounds, right? This could be an example of a workaround to this problem, right, that this person's reporting on their incident. Troubleshooting the Wi-Fi connection, right? This is a solution. This is another piece of the service desk, right, that we're not really going to expand on today, but workarounds is part of problem management, so we kind of are, right? And these ITIL practices really all work together. And then last but not least, we're not really going to spend time on it, but Robbie put in a ticket. So we've got Robbie's device over here being suggested so we can make a relationship between his device and this ticket too. So having linked a few tickets, just to give us an example, let's kind of look at that problem record, right? So we've got some incidents here. Let's look at a problem record and maybe one that's relevant to this, right? See if I've got a good example here. Let's take a look at this. So some things that I mentioned earlier on, right, is a lot of folks are practicing problem management whether they realize it or not. And one of the important things is to formalize it and start documenting it appropriately. So this ticket record doesn't look vastly different than the incident, and we're going to see that is going to be consistent throughout the service desk, right? One more time, I'm going to just reiterate, this is the SolarWinds Service Desk, the cloud platform. We looked at earlier the web help desk. So we're looking at this SolarWinds Service Desk, and this is our problem record, right? Some of the important things I highlighted in that definition: root cause, symptoms, which can kind of be your impact as well, and then workaround. These are very, very important things to capture, and formalizing your problem management practice is one of the biggest things I'll suggest to a lot of organizations, because they're already identifying the root cause in order to address the problem. But managing problem records, problem management, is something that is underutilized, and these records, as simple as they are, will greatly make that practice so much easier, right? And for our next topic, change enablement. One of the things I'm going to mention as well is just making sure you're meeting about your problems, right? There's a lot of change meetings. Change is definitely widely adopted compared to problem. So meeting regularly about the problems that exist in your environment is really important, right? It doesn't have to be as frequently. It doesn't have to be once a week. It can be once a month. But making sure you're putting out those sparks to prevent more and more fires from coming in without need is problem management in a nutshell, right?
And I think one of the things that sticks out to me there, Sean, I'm a tier 1 tech. I'm sick of resolving the same ticket over and over and over again, right? I mean, there's better things I could be doing with my time than going back and attaching the same solutions article to a ticket every time, or connecting with that end user to resolve the same issue every time. If we can get these into a problem record, now that gives us a chance as our service desk team to kind of get it all in one fell swoop, so that once we've resolved that problem, we've restored service for all of those end users, and we've done it in one shot instead of 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on the size of your organization, potentially hundreds of people that can't connect to the network at a given time.
Yeah, and that's a great thing I didn't cover in the demo, but it's definitely a feature that exists, is letting the features help you with that mass copy and pasting, so to speak, right? Being able to mass communicate from either a parent incident or on the problem record itself, doing the post to all related incidents, right? That's what the feature is called. And being able to do that mass communication is huge. To your point, if you've got a huge environment, hundreds of reports coming in on a Wi-Fi issue in that example, I don't want to have to transcribe that on every single one. I don't want to have to update the status on every single one. So being able to do the mass communication, the mass resolution for all those, I believe we're also going to be able to see that on the change level as well, which is our segue into one of my favorites, change enablement, right? I've been a change manager, so to speak, before in past lives. So this one's near and dear to me. It's had probably some of the most changes out of the SolarWinds Service Desk in the past, I'll say 2 years. So this is going to be a huge one, and I'm really excited to take a look at it, Chris.
Yeah, and by the way, doing great on time. We've got a little over 10 minutes left to get through change enablement, and then we will take some questions at the end of the presentation here as well. So quick definition, change enablement to transition us over. According to ITIL 4, the practice of ensuring risks are properly assessed, authorizing changes to proceed, and managing a change schedule in order to maximize the number of successful service and product changes. Okay, so we're about to show you, and as you mentioned, Sean, this is one of the areas of the Service Desk platform that we have kind of put a lot of time and resources in, and it turns out it was well timed, because this is something that a lot of organizations have been using over the last 7 months or so because of all of the technology changes, right, that are taking place to support the organizational changes. So when we look at it from a practical sense, and that definition and what we're trying to achieve, what stands out?
Let's keep the theme of highlighting some areas in the definition, right? Because whether we remember it or not, because to us we go into work and change is just part of work now. It was a practice that was kind of published from ITIL. So when we look at that definition, assessing risks, authorizing change is a huge one, and then managing the schedule, right? When changes happen, we have to make sure we're not stacking changes that shouldn't be stacked. We have to make sure that they're in according to the business's needs. Ultimately, we're here to support a business, right? So we have to make sure that the changes that we're doing don't stop business from happening. And having your system do a lot of the work for you. Again, we're going to try and rely on what can the system do for me. I'm going to say it a couple more times probably throughout our demo today. But one of the things I also want to talk about is that first piece, assessing risks. A struggle I've had is getting adoption of both problem management and change management, or now change enablement. It seems like paperwork to a lot of the technical folks and engineers. But I promise you the person I struggled with adopting this most came back and thanked me years later because it covered his job. And then the system really is there to protect you, right? So change is huge for that. The authorization piece, assessing the risk. Sometimes if you're going into to do a change. Let's say a silly example here, but it's a relevant, real one. Changing a printer cartridge on a multifunction printer that's used in an office space. That's a
We need
change.
this in my house.
What's that?
We need that in my house.
Yeah. I need one too. But changing that doesn't seem significant. It doesn't seem big, but it is a change and it needs to be captured. It needs to be documented. Someone's going to go in and report a problem that they can't connect to the printer. Maybe it's because you opened the lid, took it offline to do the change or maintenance on it, right? That is a change. It's a change to the environment. And so maybe it's something that needs to be captured and documented. Now, is that impactful, right? Assessing the risks, they're very low risks, right? But it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be captured and documented. So the next piece is then authorization. Who said I can do this, right? Who said it's okay to do this? One of my favorite examples to talk about when it comes to authorization is updating servers. Updating servers is probably one of the most routine changes that'll be done in an environment. And accounting, because we all love getting paid and we love it when our business makes money. Accounting is the guinea pig here. So if I'm updating an accounting server, right, when payroll is supposed to kick off, if I'm just updating maybe the Windows, or maybe I'm updating the application, the software that they use to process payroll, right? If I haven't consulted the business and if they're not part of acknowledging when that change can and should take place, if it should take place, then I'm not doing a service to the business, right? I'm doing a disservice. I also stop myself from getting a paycheck, and nobody wants that. So that's another big thing. So one of the things I was talking about with that is the schedule, right? Part of assessing is knowing when changes are going to happen and making sure it's okay. So now I think it's probably an okay time for us to jump into demo and look at the service desk and see what that is. But we're going to cover each of those bullets that I just mentioned with a screen share here. So without further ado.
Yeah, and I like some of the questions we've got coming in and how to approach standard changes, routine changes, potentially even emergency changes. And that's some of the work that we've put in to the Service Desk platform that Sean's going to show you here, is that, you can template some of these things out. You can build an automated workflow that's going to help drive your process forward so that, maybe not every change is the same, but you can group some of them together in terms of the process that it's going to follow.
Yeah, and as I saw also in the chat, there's tons of resources. If I had 8 hours to spend with you, I would. It's hard for me to stop talking once we get going. So this is an example of, and it's something newer since some of the last sessions that I've done with Chris. The change catalog is the way to make a template for your change requests, right? This isn't a change. This is a catalog, a template where I can make a request, right? So as a former change manager, I need to be able to identify what fields should be editable, what fields need to be visible to my requesters, right? What's mandatory, what's not mandatory maybe. And again, talking about that consistent view, this looks very much like the problem, which we're going to see when we look at a submitted change, right? We've got some baked in fields for you. Identifying the change plan, rollback plan, and test plan, so that the folks reviewing and authorizing this have the ability to assess the risks. And part of that's going to be to look at that change schedule, which we'll look at as well. But being able to put variables in to collect the right information, and these can feed into a workflow, a process. Some of the big things I want to highlight on the templates is you can create your templates and lock down what can be changed, what can't be changed. And this is a big for that cover your job mention I was working on, right? For compliance, for adherence, right? Making sure that people are submitting a change and it's following the appropriate process, right? So this is a change template. These are newer to the Service Desk, and it's a very exciting piece for me, something I wish I had when I was actually a consumer of the product. But this is going to be a great segue for us to jump into looking at an actual change request. So I know you guys have loved it when I've switched back to camera so you can see Chris and I. I'm going to jump right back to another window, though. This time we're going to look at an example of a change that has been submitted. So we should be seeing here Anna Agent. She is the requester of this change, right? And bear with the examples that we've got on screen. We're focusing on change management, change enablement as a practice here. So again, reviewing to make sure that we can assess, right? So we can assess the risks, right, For example, assessing the change window, right? What time do I want to start and end this specific change? And here's an example of the automation. What is the system going to do for me? It's going to check to see if I've got conflicts with other changes. Right now I'm in good shape. So as an approver in the process, right, as somebody who's authorizing this change, I need to be able to review these details. I need to be able to see in the audit who has approved this. And if I need to start, stop, restart the process in order to make changes to this, again, one of the biggest things, just like in problem management, is document it. Right? A lot of folks are kind of doing change, whether it's via email or not, but the most important thing is documenting it. And the SolarWinds Service Desk does a great job with these consistent views of just giving you fields out of the box to start recording the things that you're already doing. Right? Give you a formal place to do it, build relationships between the other types of work that you're doing, and make communications out. So that being said, I think this is a good a stopping point to go off of for change enablement. I know we've got some questions, so I'd love to get to some of those. But really, hopefully, this was very helpful for you guys to kind of look from the portal perspective to incidents, to problems, to changes. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, and I think one thing I would add, since I've heard you say it a bunch of times, and I haven't heard you say it yet on this session, when in doubt, create a record. Right? It applies to change management, problem management, of course, to your end users who are submitting tickets. But you'll never go wrong with documenting something so that it's in the system. And Sean, I'm going to put you to the test. We have less than 2 minutes here. Let's try to get a couple questions in.
All right, let's do it.
And then we're going to go straight to Liz and Jason, who have got an overview of how this Service Desk product integrates with the Orion platform. So you can take some of the alerts coming into Orion and have it automatically generate incidents within your Service Desk so that you can put some ITIL framework behind resolving those alerts more quickly. So really excited for that session. In the meantime, let's see if we can get 2 quick questions in. First, we covered incidents, but we didn't cover service requests in the service catalog. So when would something qualify as an incident versus when it would be a service request?
All right. Let me get my soapbox real quick. Okay, so a service request versus an incident. The very short definition that I'll give both of these. Incident, something's broken. A service request, something new. Right? It can be something new. It can be something changed, added, right? The key part of something new is it's predefined. It's a service that my organization offers, right? So it's a known service that's established and we're able to provide to you, right? We know what questions to ask. I know what work we need to do in order to deliver that service. The incident is the unknown. It's the broken thing, right? When we look back to the definition on incident management, restoring service, that means there's a service that's out, right? Whereas with a service request, you're looking to either add something new or take advantage of an existing service that you're not already taking advantage of. So that's going to be the biggest thing is there's known and unknown, there's predefined, and let's collaborate and troubleshoot. So that's our incident versus service request.
And I think that let's get to one more quick one before we kick it over to the next session. And the last one I wanted to get to here is, when should you create a problem record for something?
If you're asking that question, go ahead and create it. Like I was saying, when in doubt, create an incident or create a ticket. And when should you create a problem? That's going to vary organization to organization. ITIL offers these definitions as a framework, right? As guiding principles is a huge term you'll hear in ITIL 4. There's no hard and fast rule. The idea is to make sure you're addressing that spark. So going back to my analogy, which one day I might get paid for coining that, right? The idea behind problem management is addressing the spark. If you're seeing an incident that might trigger other incidents, make a problem record, get that root cause identified, see what those symptoms are, right? Document it, record it, review it with your team. And sometimes I also see that, if it's a executive, right, even if it's just them, you create a problem for it, that's okay. If you want to create problem records when your CEO can't connect to Wi-Fi and it's just him, go for it.
Sean, thank you so much. Everyone in the audience, thank you for joining us. If you're Service Desk users or Orion users or both, you're going to want to hang around for the next session. That's all for us with IT Service Management 101. Enjoy the rest at the WAC Camp.
Thank you, everybody.